Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Willoughby. This is the layout tour series. We are following engine number 908 as it crosses the layout from east to west, Silva to Andrews. We left off episode 3 with parking the train in the siding at Hemingway for time. So today we will pick the train back up at Hemingway for episode number 4, and we will continue our journey west. Full disclosure, for the sake of the save and the game, I did have to kind of run a day, so it is technically the next morning. Since our last episode, the train did lay over here. I did not run the train. It just laid over here at Hemingway, and the railroad operated around it. So we are picking the train back up here on the morning of day number 75. It's currently 9 in the morning. Let's hop aboard and continue our journey westbound. Our goal in this episode is to get our work done at Alarka Junction and then to take the train to Nantahala onto the main line there, where we will stop, and that should end this episode if we can get there in time. And then the next episode we will run the helpers out of Nantahala and shove the train up the grade at Red Marble. For those who are just tuning in or haven't seen the other episodes, I do suggest you check them out, as I am trying to do them in order across the railroad. On our way in our journey, I am discussing the mods I'm using, whether they are my mods or third-party mods that I am using. Trying to do a mostly full in-depth tour of the railroad so folks can get a chance to kind of see what I'm running, maybe give them inspiration to run some stuff themselves. I am also on Twitch. I do stream on Twitch, and I am considering a subscription situation there where, as a subscriber, you would gain access to my mods that I have authored. I have not currently published any of them. I'm still trying to figure out what the deal is with that, or what my plan is going to be. I am currently sitting on potentially just doing a couple dollars a month. I think Twitch defaults at $3 a month. Doing a subscription like that where folks would then, up on other things, I'm also trying to come up with other stuff for it so it's not, a waste for folks, but trying to give access to those mods and a way for me to make a couple dollars to support the channel and the time I spend doing it. That being said, hopefully we can get the train moving here at Hemingway. I do not remember if I talked about it in the last episode as we were parking the train at Hemingway. I probably did as we went into this turnout. Hemingway is one of my mods. I have extended the siding. I have extended several of the sidings on the railroad. Hemingway is one of them. It is now right about a mile long. Most of the sidings that I have modified, I try to get them to be about a mile long. This train did not fit in the siding at Hemingway, so in between episodes I did have to cut the power off, pull the cars into the clear, cut the power off. I ran the power down to Bryson to get it out of the way, and then brought it back up for the filming of this episode and all sequential episodes after. Is what it is. This train is heavy. We're sitting at about 7,223 tons right now. And these 3 Jeep 40s are not happy about that. Nice thing is, we're going to be setting out a bunch of cars out of the middle of the train when we get to Alarka Junction, into the interchange there, if we can get up there. Getting these engines to do a little bit of work isn't going to be the worst thing to happen to them. It's good for them to stretch their legs every once in a while, right? The 1.5% grade that we're trying to start up probably isn't going to help. So maybe a little more information about the railroad. I apologize if I double up on some of it. Someone on Facebook did ask today about my locomotive roster. So it was nice to kind of get in there and poke around and see what I actually did have on the active roster, as I had not really paid much attention to that recently. Currently on the railroad there are 4 MP15 ACs. They do run in 2 pairs, 31 through 34. They run in 2 pairs. They're both down assigned in Willoughby Yard. One of them runs the switch job, which flat switches all the cars, inbound cars at Willoughby, blocks them out. And then the other pair runs the trim job on the far end of the yard, which does exactly what it's called. But for those that aren't aware, trim jobs usually grab the blocks of cars that have been switched out, double, triple them together, or do whatever is necessary, and then shove them into the arrival departure tracks in a yard, so that then the mainline power can come out of the roundhouse, tie onto the train, and go. So I have a pair of MP15s that do the blocking, a pair of MP15s that do the trim job. The trim job is also responsible for switching the sawmill and running the Conley log branch, and also switching the sugar mill by Mr. Grizz. Love that industry. If you're looking for lots of traffic out of one spot, that is a good one to get. Dial it up to 4 or 5, and then drown in cars the rest of your life, like I do. I have also created a mod adjacent to that one, just east of that one, that is the K Mason oil refinery. I don't believe that mod was in the game when this train went through there, so I will maybe do a video on that down the road, showcasing that particular mod. But the trim job also switches that, so it's responsible for all those industries plus trimming cars over. Now the lines do get a little blurred since I play by myself. Sometimes it's more convenient if I'm on one set of engines to just go do all the work. I try to get it to where they're each doing their thing, but you know how that goes, especially when you're playing by yourself. There are 2 U30Bs on the railroad, 701 and 703. There is 1 U30B B unit on the railroad, 702. You would think that that would be a nice set of 3 locomotives in a consist. They are not. All 3 of those engines are in separate consists. There are currently 6 Jeep 38s on the railroad. Now, originally the railroad owned 12 of them when they first became available. From Beeman. I started replacing everything with those, and I ended up with, I believe, 12 of them. Some of those have been sold off. So there are 6 remaining on the railroad. Currently 6 of them on the railroad. Number 801, 802, 805, 806, 809, and 810. We may not be making it up the hill. We have to get to right there. Right there's where the grade stops. So, 6 Jeep 38s. There are also 27 Jeep 40s on the railroad. They are numbered 900 through 926. 908, 905, and 924 are currently with us here on this train, which I am thinking maybe we should just double the hill. So, for the sake of not having to sit here and just watch this train move at 2 miles an hour for the next half hour, I vote we just make our cut right here, wherever that is. I'm going to set about 5 brakes because this backside is on a hill. And I'd hate to come back and find our train not there. Alright. Let's try this again. Give him a little stretch. Look at that. Tuh. Nice thing is... Oh. Yeah, not a whole lot of train behind the cut, so... But maybe it's enough to... Well, it's moving, so it's enough to get us up the hill. So anyway, that is the engine fleet as it sits. Oh, there are also 2 Alco RSD-15s. New mod on Nexus. I think they're gorgeous locomotives, so you should check those out. I have 2 of those in service. Another opportunity maybe for a video to just go over those. They are a gorgeous model, very comprehensive, a lot of in-depth detailing you can do on them, a lot of things you can change and make them your own. The mod does include the RSD-15 and the RSD-17. 15 both early and later models, fuel tanks, sand hatches, a couple different things you mess with. There's some interior stuff. The seats, you can arrange the seats in the cab. It's nuts. Gorgeous locomotive. There are 2 of them on the railroad. I do have a couple other YouTube videos of them. They've been out doing their testing on the railroad for about an in-day game and a half now. I am going to be purchasing more of those. I also do have 2 SD40-2s that are technically currently still on the active roster, though they are going to be replaced by the RSD-15s. They are listed for sale. They will be going to the interchange at Silva during this game day. In fact, I believe they are out on the railroad. We might see them between here and Nantahala. But they are kind of working their way towards Silva with a train, and they will be going to be sold when they reach Silva. That is the current plan for them. Great locomotives. It just irritates me that I can't get them to take fuel. So I will be letting them go to, back into the world. So because we don't have the rear of the train, it'd be just as easy to pull this through the yard, set out those cars, double over anything overage. And then those cars on the left there on the Y, those are east or westbound cars that we will pick up. We'll set these out, pick those up, shove back to our train at Hemingway, and then get underway and head for Nantahala. That is plan A. Subject to change. I apologize if constantly rotating the screen makes anybody motion sick. I'm just always looking for the right view to enjoy the equipment. All the different paint schemes that you see on the Jeeps, I believe there's currently 6 paint schemes floating around. They've kind of been a organic growth of the paint schemes, starting with the mint green and then going through purple and tan back to the mint green, and then the most current paint scheme is the olive green that you see on the 924 there. That is the most current paint scheme on the equipment as it sits. Make sure we are not lined up the coal branch. We'll let everything else just be copacetic. Excuse me. And I'll watch the rear of our train. Once it's in the clear, we'll stop, double over any overage on the far end, and then pick up our pickups and get out of here. And that'll take us on to the next couple mods, which is a couple more extended sidings. and a couple of extra tunnels, as there's been some grade alignment in the river valley between Alarka and Nantahala. There's some 30-mile-an-hour curves out by Wesser, and for some reason I decided I didn't like the speed restriction down there, so the railroad rerouted themselves, dug a couple tunnels, installed a couple bridges, straightened out the railroad a little bit, so now everything is good for 35 down through there. Saved ourselves 30 seconds of shipping time. But I've seen railroads spend money on worse, so we're going to call it prototypical. And here comes the end of our train, and the head end, or the rear end of our train, and the head end of our train is probably headed down the hill, so we should probably look at stopping sooner than later. Or at least getting it under control. So this is Alarka Junction. This is one of my mods. It is kind of spurred from an existing third-party mod that also Alarka Junction interchange. My interchange just happens to be over here on this side of the main line. The third-party interchange is actually part of the Y. I didn't want to have Alarka branch all turned on and everything. You have to have the Alarka branch turned on for that one to work, and my thought was, why have an interchange if you have the whole branch line? So I came up with one that doesn't require the branch line to be active. Did we get paid for those? Okay, yeah, we did. Whew. Not doing it for fun. Moving these cars around to get paid. If I deliver the cars, pay me for the cars, right? I didn't hear the bell. I was probably babbling on. Need to get a tie crew in here to install some more ties before we have a derailment. The ramblings of a track guy. Oop, stopped a little short. That makes me no better than the AE at this point. Heard the bell that time, even though we're not there yet. Maybe we get another car in, maybe we don't. But the clearance points aren't clearly marked, so why not try to get another car in there? Excellent. Well, we got them all in that we needed to anyway, so works for me. Those are secured. Some of you may be noticing I've been I tie handbrakes on both ends of most cuts. I've been noticing with the physics of the game, if you only tie them on one end on a grade, even on the low end, the cars will start kind of bouncing against each other and then all the cars are moving. The game struggles with moving equipment, especially if there's a lot of it, so I try to minimize how many cars are considered moving by trying to keep the cuts of cars from bouncing around too much. I have problems in Andrews in the interchange. I've also modded that one, expanded it, made it bigger so that it didn't get switched 7 times a day, so I'd spend the whole day just babysitting interchanges. But the cuts of cars there are now long enough that the 3 handbrakes that the game sets on the cars doesn't always hold, especially if the cars uphill from them start bouncing around. They will actually slowly shove those handbrakes out the low end of the yard. So I've made a habit of trying to set brakes on both ends of the cuts. That does seem to help with the slack bouncing around inside a cut of cars that's just being stored somewhere. And I had hoped that this video wasn't going to be extra long, or maybe that's what people like. Leave a comment, if you're liking these, let me know. I can do more. There's plenty of stuff to talk about and look at on the railroad. Let me know what a good length is. I'm still learning some of this stuff. I know what I like to watch or what I'll sit down and watch, but that doesn't mean that's what everyone wants. So I can make the videos for myself or I can make them for viewers if you guys watch them more than I do. So, don't be afraid to leave a comment if you want them longer or shorter or different subjects, stuff I'm not covering or talking about. I'm happy to talk about it. But if I'm going to take the time to put content out, my preference would be to put out content that people actually want to watch. So don't be afraid to reach out, speak up, let me know what would be interesting to watch, what wouldn't be interesting to watch, things I'm doing right, things I'm doing wrong. I already have received some feedback about volumes, the train game sounds being louder than my voice. I did do some adjustments to that. Hopefully this is a little better. I will reach out to that person who will probably be watching this video as well when it comes out. Go the other way. To see if my changes were better for them, and we will see how that goes. So anyway, I'm open to constructive criticism, good or bad, so I want to put out stuff that people want to watch and take the time to do. I know like when I'm scrolling through YouTube looking for something to watch, it's usually I'm doing something else that doesn't take my mind off things, so I can sit and watch a video while I'm doing it, and I know what I like. So let me know what you guys like, and I'll do what I can to put out more of what you guys like, because that's the whole point. I get to play the game whether I record it or not. So anyone that wants to come on the journey with me are free to do so. Let me know what would be exciting to watch, and I'll see what I can do to make it happen. So, we'll grab these cars, and I just realized, yeah, I could have just shoved these through the Y and shoved down to Hemingway, but it is what it is at this point. We'll pull this stuff out, We'll shove back down to our train at Hemingway, and then we will continue our journey west to Nantahala. And the train is going to be a little lighter than it was coming up here in total, and that's good. Because if my math is right, we will have enough tonnage that the helpers will be able to shove us up the hill, which is good. I'll do the third person way to climb on the side of a car. As I get whacked by a telephone pole. I love the smell of fresh wood chips in the morning. Just do a 30 more. About 30 minutes in now. Just do a 30-minute episode on here's how to set out 30 cars at Alarka Junction. At that rate, it would be a 27-part series. Trying to keep it down to like 7 or 8. Don't want people getting bored with it. Think I see the back of our train. So, let's get this together and get the heck out of here. Should put us just under 6,000 tons, unless I'm not able to math. Yeah, 54.42. That's tolerable. Stinking telephone poles in the way. Look, trees don't get in the way. Telephone poles do. Alright. Let's get out of here. Again, apologies if I've rambled on about it every video, but the one thing I am enjoying about this series is it's forcing me to manually run a train over the railroad, which I don't get much time to do anymore, so I am enjoying that aspect of it. Make sure we left everything at Alarka line so we can just go blowing through at track speed, if we get up to track speed. Yeah. New track speed was the pipe dream through Alarka Junction. At least we're getting up the hill. believe this interchange is going to get serviced again in about 25 minutes, 15 minutes. It's trying to get a lot of cars today, so it was full after the first interchange, and I didn't get to emptying it before it tried to serve again, so it's going to make its second attempt at a second interchange, which it should do now since we got some cars for them to take and space for them to put cars in. So power braking is allowed on the Willoughby, since we ordered a bunch of locomotives with dynamic brakes and they all came to us faulty. Roadmaster of Engines decided it was okay to power brake. So we do. And it is the safest way to get the train down the hill without dynamics, so. Kick it off and see if we can get a soft set. Sometimes the game seems to mimic that, sometimes it doesn't. Bail the independent off. Well, coming into Brooks. Brooks is one of the few sidings I haven't touched, though looking at it now, we could extend it to the east around there, just dig out that hillside a little. Would allow us to get longer trains closer to Alarka Junction while they're waiting their turn to do their work. Maybe that's on the future radar, maybe not. Problem is, I'll come in and look at all this not straight track when I do that and end up having to relay the whole thing, because non-straight, straight track kind of drives me bonkers as a track guy. It's what I do for a living right now, so drives me nuts when I see track that's not track. This is probably the start of the 30 right here, so coming in a little hot. As you can tell, I have not run this side of the railroad very much. Hopefully we stay on the track. That looks like a screenshot if ever I've seen one. Once we drop down to the lake, cross the lake finger and into Almond, then the hard part's done because it's basically uphill from there. Running trains uphill is a lot easier than running trains downhill. Yeah, we've got a ways to go in the 30 still. And that's okay. There's the end of the 30. No. Clicked on the wrong thing. I don't need to know the weather. I'm trying to run a train. Thank you, computer. Well, not quite clear of the 30 yet. Why the 30 sign is way back there I couldn't tell you, but we're on straight track, so here we go. I'm just gonna be gentle with it. Let the grade do most of the work. Gonna be enough, huh? Pull on a little harder then. Of course, as we crest down the hill to the bridge. This tree is right in the way. Here is the new east end of Almond siding. Like I said, this is the next one that's been extended out to about a mile long. Almond Station. Yeah, see, here's where the switch used to be. Train would roll better if I kicked the rest of the brakes off. It is pretty watching the trains run along the lake here, along the river, as it transitions from one to the other. You know, the scenery is simplistic, but it's enough for me. Let me know how you guys think. But the brain kind of fills in the balance. It's always fun taking a moment to watch the trains down here. Oh, which brings us to our next mod. This is tunnel number 2. The track used to go out and around the point. This was one of the 30-mile-an-hour curves on the railroad. I took that out, got track speed back up to 35 through a broader curve. The track used to come out and around here. Now it cuts through the point, through tunnel number 2. Which means we're almost to Wesser. This was the first mod that I did on my own after I'd been shown how to start playing with that stuff. This was the first one I went out on my own, found a spot in the map I knew I wanted to change the track, and came out here and did it. As we come up on Wesser, Wesser has also been extended to about a mile long. That's one of the more recent sightings I've done. I also relayed, since I turned the signals off for the sighting mods, that also gave me the opportunity to kind of change the curve at the far end of Wesser to get rid of that last little bit of 30 there. Wesser goes around a 90-degree curve at the west end and then went up along the river canyon. That is where we will, the other alignment change there is we will cross the river into tunnel number 3, and it's a straight shot from Wesser over the bridge through tunnel number 3 and over the river again back to the normal side of the railroad, or side of the canyon. Here is the new east end of Wesser, and as I thought, the two SD40-2s and one of the U30B B units is working their way towards Silva. They've been waiting for us. Should probably have rang the bell. Don't tell the FRA. The station sign that's hard to get rid of marks where the switch used to be. So instead of hooking around and up the river canyon, we're going to cross the river on my little custom bridge that I'm pretty proud of, and then into tunnel number 3. And then we will cross one of CLB's bridges, which will probably get replaced at some point with another one like on the far end of the tunnel. And you might be asking yourself right now, what's the point in having a 35-mile-an-hour tunnel to eliminate the 30 when you let the train get down to 30 anyway? Well, that's just poor engineering on my part. Should have throttled out as soon as I hit the first bridge, and I did not. And apparently now we're going to struggle to get up the hill. And I guess this episode is going to be a little long as well. Hopefully that's okay with everybody. If I'd have known, I'd have grabbed myself a soda before I started. Yeah, it looks like maybe the worst of it's over as we're starting to get our speed back. This sweeping curve would be a good spot to watch the train go by. Yeah, we're not near anything super interesting otherwise. Again, don't get to often take enough time to rail fan much with as busy as the railroad is, so do it when you can, right? That might have also been another good screenshot opportunity. Blew that one. Loving the wheel squeal. The never-ending train. And ironically, when we came into Alarka Junction, we were over 100 cars. Now we're under 100 cars. Still a healthy looking train, though. Stand out on one of these big rocks on the river and watch the train go by. Very nice. Alright, back to business. Kinda. So this is part of why the RSD-15s are starting to show up on the railroad. They outperform these Jeep 40s on the main line, so they will probably start taking over some of the traffic on this side of the map. Because even with the lower horsepower, pardon me, with the 6 axles, they put a little more power, put a more tractive effort to the rail. So that's probably the direction the Willoughby's going to be going. Like I said, 600 or 601 and 602 have been doing test runs. They've done 2 runs over the railroad to Andrews and back now, and I'm really happy with them. So far so good. My guess is they will displace the rest of the Jeep 38s off the railroad. And then the Jeep 40s will start doing more local switching and local running the locals. Pulling the coal drags out of Kirkland and Robinson. Now, if someone were to start doing, say, the Alco C-Series locomotives, the Centuries, whole nother ball game. And then Willoughby would have to go through another power roster change. Coming up on Hewitt, someone I'm friends with on Discord, I can't remember who now, recently gave me a layout tour, kind of a flyover of their railroad, and they had a mod that someone had done, a third-party mod, that kind of changed Hewitt around a little bit. Didn't delete the industry or anything, but moved the tracks and added some buildings, made it look like a functioning industry with kind of better placement of where the tracks are for the products that are coming in and out. And I thought it was really well done, and it's motivated me at some point to do the same thing. I'm going to go through the asset pack, just see what's available, see what inspires me, and rearrange this industry a little bit and just make this a little more modern. I think that's the plan. So stay tuned for that. Coming sometime promised in the future. Oop, over rotation. Yeah, extend out the siding a little bit so it'll hold a local. Run this end all the way up to the cut. Put in some buildings, a dock. Give the boxcars an actual dock. You know, an aggregate loader for some silos for the aggregates that get loaded here. I think that would be pretty snazzy. And if we're at Hewitt, that means we're almost to Nantahala finally. Yay! Make sure we are lined in. We are lined in. We're going to go down the main. Nantahala is another siding that has been extended. It was the first one I extended, if I remember correctly. And it was extended to support the helpers and to support these longer trains. I moved the helper pocket down to the east end of the siding, so as a train pulls in the main and stops down at the far end, the helpers can just pop out, come down the main, tie onto the back of the train. I do run rear end helpers on this map. I don't think the game calculates the physics differently, but in the real world and also in the model railroad world, I've done some science and paid attention, and you do get 11% more power out of everything if you have helpers on the rear versus just tacking them onto the end. And my guess is it's something to do with flange contact and drag and friction. So I don't think the game calculates that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Evidence if you can. Be great to read about that if it does, but from what I've noticed, it doesn't matter where I put the engines in the game. It will either shove the train up the hill or it won't. On a larger model railroad I had back in 2007 to 2009, we did some testing of that. Ran a train with 3 locomotives up the hill. Wouldn't make it up the hill. Took one of those locomotives, put it on the back of the train, same train, ran it up the hill, and it crawled its way up the hill, which was pretty cool to see. I know BNSF and UP did some studies on it. That's why they run dupes everywhere now, or one of the reasons they run dupes, DPUs everywhere now, for fuel savings. But it was really cool to see it in action on a model railroad and have a very similar result. So we're going by our helper set now. East end of Nantahala, that's kind of where they live. They come into Willoughby every so often when they need fuel and or repair. I generally do both at the same time. Send out a second set to kind of cover for them while they're here, or while they're there. And or if I don't have a second set, I will run smaller trains knowing that they're not here, sticking more to the tonnage restrictions on the hill. The hill has been relayed. It is now 3.8% or less. We will see that in the next episode, as this episode is already 15 minutes to a half hour longer than I had hoped it would be. Hopefully you're still here watching. If you are, I appreciate it. I have learned in the videos I've watched that are longer, I learn more from just listening to the folks talk, especially in the videos where they're doing multiplayer and there's multiple people in the map, in the play. I like to listen to it even if it's just in the background, because I've picked up a couple things and learned things. Each video teaches me 1 or 2 more things I didn't know about a particular game I'm playing. You know, if you use this key so and so, it'll do this. Oh, I didn't even know that. I go try it. Sure enough, look at that. So this one again ran a little longer than I'd hoped for this particular series. I do want to do longer videos in the future, but again, I'd appreciate some feedback on what people want to see. Lengths, shorts, long, content. You know, are we good following trains around? I got plenty of trains we could follow around. A couple of the locals and stuff we could follow around in the future if we wanted to. You just want me to videotape trains run around for several hours? I can. I generally play the game for 5 or 6 hours at a time when I'm home. I can do that. I can record it. Let me know what you want to see, and I would be happy to do what I can to oblige. So, that being said, I think we'll end this one here. I will just pull this train down to the west end of the main line here, and I will park it, and we will pick it back up for episode number 5, Taming the Grade. So, as always, thank you, and have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Like and subscribe. If your finger's not too sore from clicking both of those buttons, okay to hit the notifications as well, then you will know when other videos come out. And I assume you guys all know how that works, so I won't bore you with it. Anyway, we are now arriving at the west end of Nantahala. We will talk about the changes here before we depart up the hill in episode number 5. Thanks again. Have a wonderful whatever you are doing.